in marketing, what's likely going to happen next year? Someone's going to push it too far, and it's going to be like, maybe we should have controlled this a little bit more. Not the AI itself, just like the use of it. Because imagine someone who develops an AI software that can create new emails from new domains that it buys and buys like the cheapest domain, buys extensions of that domain, creates the email, then writes the email so it's sort of personalized, then scrapes the web for email addresses and then starts pumping it out. Like it just gets out of hand.
You're about to hear a conversation between two agency owners who collectively have over 30 years of experience helping brands sell millions of dollars. Enjoy the episode.
I think there are a couple of things. One is maybe we can talk about what we think is going to happen in 2024. We can look back and see if we were right or wrong.
All right, I like that.
I'm not a huge fan of like just predicting stuff because I feel like it, everybody has their opinion, but like it is kind of fun, right? And
you want me to bring my tarot cards?
And it's interesting, yeah, and it's interesting to see like what others think is going to happen. I think that's like where we get the value from, right?
Yeah.
Not so much in the prediction itself, but like how we see things evolve, especially like things like AI and marketing and all these things that are super dynamic, right? If you told me, I don't know, horse saddles, how are they going to evolve? Like, that would be a lot harder to predict or a lot harder to really have anything interesting. But
we're only doing a next year prediction type of thing,
Yeah.
I mean, see, ChatGPT is out of the box now. There's going to be a lot. Yeah, I mean, we're already on that boat. So, for example, AI definitely is going to grow. What are your thoughts? I can tell you what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so I wrote some of these down. So I think, and this is probably very obvious, I think we're going to have a lot more AI content, but I think we're not going to care. I think the sort of the cat's out of the bag in that sense. First of all, people aren't going to be able to tell the difference. I saw a report that somebody did, like a study someone made recently. I think they did like 1,000 articles with Bard and 1,000 articles with ChatGPT, something like that. And they had people guess whether or not it was AI. ChatGPT scored a little lower than Bard. Bard fooled more people. And, but, they both fooled a bunch of people. So people no longer know if it's written by AI or not. So I think we're going to have like an explosion of that. I think that's already happening, but I think next year we're just going to pile it on. It's going to be crazy how much stuff is going to be just AI developed. And the AIs are going to get a lot better at being more nuanced and, performing at a deeper level of understanding of what they're writing about. Not traditional understanding, but more, more nuanced.
A little bit less
basic.
More human.
A little bit less basic because it tends to spit out like the most basic stuff that the internet has. So I think that's going to get better, but I just think it's going to be the norm. Like you won't know whether something was AI generated in terms of text. And I think in terms of video, that's also coming with the virtual influencers and all these different things. I think that's also. I don't know if maybe by the end of next year, end of 2024, those virtual influencers will be so good you won't be able to tell if it's a human you're following or if it's who's giving you the news or what I mean. Like you won't be able to tell what's what. But I think that's more of that might roll into 2025, and we're still not there yet. But I think for 2024, we're going to just be pumping out so much content that. So, even the Google search results are just going to be AI generated, a lot of them. And I think that's.
So like, what is the best way to clean, what is the best way to clean your air ducts here in Orlando? And instead of being like Jimmy, who is the, air conditioning expert that writes like, hey, in Orlando is you think that all that is going to be produced by AI. And then rather than having Jimmy in front of his company and saying, hi, I am Jimmy. I'm from Air Conditioning here galore. You have seen me in other videos, such as how to clean your dogs and why put vinegar on your air conditioning. You think that that's going to stop and it's just going to be like, hey, I'm going to get myself an avatar. I'm just going to have ChatGPT give me that information, then just throw it in an avatar and then have that avatar pretty much become.
No, I think Jimmy's still going to exist. I think there's going to be a lot more Jimmys because a lot more people are realizing that's sort of the playbook in social media is to show your face, da da da. There are other people who are going to be like, I'm going to enter the game. I don't want to show my face. I'm not going to be like, I'm going to create a digital avatar, or I'm going to just post videos and do things that are just more brand, not personal brand. But I just feel like Jimmy's going to have a lot more competition, and Jimmy might face another company saying, you know what, we're going to write 1,000 articles on cleaning air conditioners. And, we're going to make the ideas, the AI is going to write them, it's going to publish them, and they're going to drown the internet with that. And Google, I think, is going to have a hard time because I don't think Google can just say, we're not going to accept this AI.
Well, it sucks because it's like if the AI produces better content than the human can, which definitely could happen since they have way more information on hand. Then Google is going to rank them better just because that's the whole thing, right?
Right.
Google, giving you what people want to know.
Yeah, but the trick there I think it's going to be hard for Google because I think the trick there is trying to make sure that it's not spam and that it's not just like regurgitating the same old thing in different ways. So I think Google is likely to update their algorithms and try to keep up with the whole AI BI pump. All the content's coming out from all these different bots. I also think more people are going to realize they don't need to do Google search, that they can just ask the AI. So I think that's going to happen a lot more in 2024. I think the people who have been doing that in 2023 are more like the tech savvy or into it and sort of, playing with these different AIs.
Oh, you think people are going to say that it's like, hey, Google it. It's going to be like, ChatGPT it.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but I do think it's like asking AI. It's already happening. Like in our household, I think it's like maybe 80 to 90% of the stuff is we ask ChatGPT. We no longer ask Google. Google is good for very specific things.
So, came out on that. So, I mean, hey Google, what's happening?
What's the yeah?
You go to the search engine, you go to Google, it picks 5 of them, then you probably take the Wikipedia, get my answer, max, this is where the sky is blue, we're good to go. What you're saying now is going to be more people like say, you know what, rather than going to Google, I'll just go straight up to ChatGPT and say, hey, what's kind of blue? And then the ChatGPT is just going to tell you the content of why it is blue, taken from the internet from different sources, and then, without.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But what about like nearest restaurant near me? Normally, like most of the things that I do in Google are more for search of things like that. Like, where can I find the cheapest TV? Where can I?
Yeah.
How can I get a cooler hat than this one?
Yeah. I think. Well, my prediction is just more and more people are gonna realize these AIs give you really good answers, and you get to skip the whole like. Here are 1,655 articles that talk about this, and then having to scroll through the first 5 or 10 and then see which one gives you like the approximate answer of what you want. I think we're just going to ask ChatGPT. It'll give us, and if we want, a more nuanced answer, we'll keep asking, or we'll ask it for the sources, and then we'll go to read the source. But I think more and more people are going to realize, Google is good for certain things, like maybe find the nearest restaurant or, very specific knowledge that has to do with maybe your area or stuff like that. But the rest of the stuff, you can probably just ask the ChatGPT, and it's like an assistant that goes on the internet and says, I'll go through the first 5 or 6 articles, I'll extract the information, I'll give it to you summarized. So it's super powerful, I think. And I was telling some friends the other day, and they were like, it's the same thing as Google. You can just Google it. I was like, no. This thing is Googling for me and coming back with the answer.
Yeah, it's just sending the gopher for an error. It's true. So what you were saying in our last video, you were like, our last podcast, you were telling me like, it's one of those things that although you don't teach yourself to like think like, hey, you know what, I need an assistant to to achieve this because I have always done it this way. Once you realize, oh no, the system gets better as it goes, and then it can actually help you out. Yeah,
Yeah.
it will reduce that type of work. I'm actually, it's one of those things that probably like I'm going to put this as one of my New Year's resolutions, which I'm starting now. It's rather than immediately going to Google, I go to ChatGPT first,
Yeah.
and that's it. Like, is this something that AI can help me with?
It's just a lot faster. I mean, if you look at our chat history with ChatGPT, it's like, I want to make brownies. Give me a world-class recipe. Give me the recipe with the most comments, or, like it's just so much easier versus having to go and then filter out and see which one you like. And this one, this one has nuts. I wonder
Wait, the
what
recipe still. I gotta play. I guess again, I have to make myself like me more aware of that. At the beginning, like whenever you're beginning, to me, as we'll talk about March, April. We had some content where we had a client, and the client had picked, 2 agencies. We were doing agency work for part of content we were doing for social media, and then another agency was doing content for social media. It was a learning experience for me. I have never done, I thought that the idea of the client was clever, where you could have, 2 agencies work content for the social media so that social media had more activity. I think it, as my first trial, my learning experience, and this is sharing this, is that it wasn't working properly because there was lack of branding. Like we were just off brand. They were doing things that they were completely different from us. And one of the things that they were doing a lot of like content via AI. So they would probably use like a Mid Journey, and then they would just, use this product and put in it, next to Fiesta. And then you realize that it was like, the product, and then you had like half a piece of corn here, a chicken in the side, like you just really, really bad. And they could churn product faster, they can churn like posts faster, but they were like really kind of like, I don't know, I wouldn't want my brand to be represented that way. I think that there's still a human, element to it. To that point, I was just like, like there is still a need for graphic design and all that stuff pretty much managed by humans. And then, as we talked about last time, it's pretty much like, hey, give me 3 ideas, and then I'll keep my best idea, then take graphic designer, run with it. But you're saying like, pretty much everybody, I mean, the cost on activating social is going to be cheaper just because of the people can do it via AI. But what I'm still kind of concerned is like, how cool is it going to be to do? I'm thinking just in general, social media content, because I think that as I stumble into some influencers that are AI based, I am like, I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's still too robotic.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But these things evolve really, really quickly, though. I mean, if you look at what we were doing at the beginning of the year and what we're doing now in terms of virtual influencers and all that, it's amazing. Like it looks very, very good now. So I'm giving it another year, and another year, it's just going to look even better. Yeah. So, and I think in terms of the design thing you were talking about, I think the trick is to combine for now, right? Hopefully, I mean, I think the AI is going to get really good at following instructions. You're just going to like prompt it. It's going to be like, I want a design that does this. Oh, you have a chicken on the side. Get rid of the chicken. Get rid of the chicken. I want this to be more on brand. Here's my brand book, and then it'll do it more. Like I think that's where we're going. But I think for now, in this first inning, we're probably using the human in the middle as well, giving it sort of maybe deciding creatively what's good and what's not. You can ask it for ideas, but then you're the filter that says this is good, this is bad. Let's just try this, or let's combine these 2 ideas and do this. So you're like the boss. And then once it creates the image, then you might need a designer to fix that. And so maybe you need to figure out a way to say, okay, let's have a designer come in, get rid of the chicken, change this color, maybe use this as inspiration if it's not good enough. But if it's good enough, then just play with it on Photoshop, fix it, and then push it back out. And so the designer's time spent doing the whole image is reduced significantly because they're starting from they're starting ahead of the game, right? They started with an image that's already created. So I think it's that's just clearly where it's going. So So another, so that's one. Another prediction I had, and I'm gonna have it written down so I got it right. I was thinking that most likely someone is going to push AI too far, and it's going to raise a lot of questions as to how are we dealing with this.
Is this really managed by good humans and things like that?
Yeah, and I think someone's gonna like it's already sort of happening. So some people are just like, I'm gonna create 3,000 articles on this, and then Google has to crawl all that and decide, okay, this page seems.
You're not talking about AI being evil. You're just talking about it. You were speaking here within the marketing realm.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think it's. I think there's this whole conversation about AI being evil, and I think.
That's not for marketing emotion. That's for another
nature. Yeah, I personally don't think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be great. It's like everything, right? We can use fire to burn down the house or cook a meal. I think AI is going to be the same. But that's just the short version of it. But if I were to say, like, in marketing, what's likely going to happen next year? Someone's going to push it too far, and it's going to be like, look, that's what I was saying about Google. Google's going to have to adapt to the fact, like, this new site that has has 3,000 articles. Like
your theory would be like, you have Ogilvy, they come up with a good campaign, and they have the campaign, and they use like 10 bots AI to pretty much produce this, and that's as good as the agency gets. But you're saying, like, somewhere in, I don't know, somewhere in the East, let's say somewhere in the East country, they're gonna have like 10,000 computers pretty much running. Like, hey, you know what? I really want people to find out about Barilla pasta, and then they were like, okay, don't worry, we have 10,000 AI that we can create. Then we're gonna like, and each 100,000 like. We're just gonna do our first dump of content.
We're just gonna spam the world. Yeah, we're just gonna spam the world.
Yeah.
We're gonna spam the world. We're gonna it's gonna be like, maybe we should have controlled this a little bit more. Not the AI itself, just like the use of it. Because imagine someone who develops an AI software that can create new emails from new domains that it buys, and buys like the cheapest domain, buys extensions of that domain, creates the email, then writes the email so it's sort of personalized, then scrapes the web for email addresses, and then starts pumping it out. Like, it's it just gets out of hand, and then we have an incredible amount of spam. Or somebody who says, I'm building this new company. A week from now, it has 3,500 articles on one topic. And articles aren't great, and then Google has to filter that, and then but then you have 1,000 articles. I'm gonna create this Twitter account, and then the thing posts every 10 seconds. Like, I think we're gonna just take it too far, obviously, because that's not gonna work. People aren't gonna follow an account that posts every 10 seconds. Nonsense. We're gonna push it too far, and then we're gonna be like, okay, wait, like, all these platforms are gonna have to adapt. Google, Twitter, everyone's gonna have to be like, okay, how do I deal with? I mean, they've already been dealing with bots, but these bots have been like kindergartners. Well, now these bots are going to be like high schoolers. How are we dealing with that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I believe too, for my predictions, there's going to be more people getting catfished. What I mean with this is more of like that whole like, hi, I'm on my TV imprint. There's going to be a lot more of that type of scam. But also, here in the States, I think it was last year. I mean, I have since COVID, I have a lot of my years merged. Well, this is prior to COVID. Dude, we used to get a lot of spam calls. And it was just like, look, you can't, and I'm not ever going to answer my phone. So right now, I'm seeing that a lot on my email. Yes, I do have some other filters and all that good stuff, but I just see a lot of just like, hey, Romulo, it's like, if you're interested in blah 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 blah, how do you get out of an unsubscribe? And then similar, I get the same phone through another phone.
Yeah.
Who can I complain about this? I really subscribe this. I know it's against spam laws here, but
yeah, and it's just gonna get like worse. We're gonna have to build the equivalent companies that monitor and like filter out all these different things, because it's everything. It's robocalls, it's spam, it's social
bring back the pop-ups.
Maybe it allows you to do all that at a big scale, maybe even personalized, like very accurately. So yeah, I think a lot of people are going to get scammed, but a lot of people are just going to be very annoyed by all the noise. And so I think we're going to have to. We might see a new company being formed just to deal with that and selling to maybe the Twitters and all these different platforms of the world and email and just making sure that we're not driven crazy by that. Having said that, remember I'm also predicting like we're not going to care if the content's good, like whether or not it was written by AI, but we are going to care if it's spamming us. Like if we're looking for the content and we find it and it's good, fine, but not if it's spamming us.
I wonder if there's going to be when. I don't think this is a next year prediction, but eventually there has to be a filter where it's just like I only want content produced by human, which is still weird because you can't. I mean, even if I created it through AI, it's AI versus human. But I don't. I mean, just you will become sure.
Yeah. And the other thing I think is going to happen is it's just going to be hard to know if it's AI or human, even if they have these systems. So they're talking about watermarking some of the content to so that other machines can know whether it was AI written or not. I don't know if I told you this, but they made a test and it came back that the U.S. Constitution was written by AI, like one of these softwares that detects whether or not something is AI. Like I said, the U.S. Constitution is AI generated by like 70% or some number. And it was, it was like, okay, that's clearly wrong, unless somebody was a time traveler and went back in time. And
that's a whole other episode.
That's another conspiracy theory episode. So I think it's like these systems aren't perfect, and I think open source, for example, open source AI is going to start catching up. I think it might always be a little bit behind. I don't know. We'll see. But it's going to start catching up. And so it's going to start you're just going to be able to download the source code, run it locally or in some cloud service and fine tune it and do whatever you want to it. And then you're going to have a system that's open source that you fine tuned that now is yours. And that, maybe those softwares are trained to detect AI, doesn't have this kind of training data, it doesn't really know. And so you're going to get away with it, people not knowing whether it's AI or not. And I think it's a good thing. I think eventually, it should happen, and these systems are going to catch up, and we're not all going to just be on ChatGPT. We're going to use a bunch of AIs for different purposes. But anyway, I think it's going to be a big year for open source next year. Is my prediction. We'll see.
Do you think mentioning the watermark, back to your comment, I'm thinking, well, what about an NFT? The whole concept of an NFT was I bought the legit first edition of this or digital produced, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Not to get into that, go to the battle of NFT and blah, blah, blah. But you think there's going to be probably more like, hey, this is original content created by Create 180. I'm going to create, some sort of NFT style watermark for the AI so that when the AI speaks the information, it could probably source me. I think that would be probably somewhat bad. You think you're going to get into that or?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to know how these industries move. I wouldn't have thought that that people are just going to start building GPT wrappers. You know what that is? Where you grab the OpenAI, you connect to their API, and then you just build a product based on that. So it's the same output, but yours is a different UX or a different UI. And they're called wrappers because you're wrapping the API around your product, And so, for example, there was these wrappers where you could analyze a PDF. Where ChatGPT originally didn't have that feature.
Sure.
And so people built that out and they started getting users, and it was like, oh, I do want to chat with a PDF. And so, they got a bunch of users. And then obviously ChatGPT said, you know what, you can now chat with PDFs. And all these wrappers are like, oh no, I don't have a business anymore because I was charging $10 a month, but now the other thing is 20, you get everything.
Well, that's what happened. I mean, but then that's technology. I mean, that's how Meta pretty much has grown. I remember, it was Facebook, and then back in the day, you had to use Hootsuite. And Hootsuite was just the concept of Hootsuite was you put it your Twitter, you put your social media and all the stuff, and then you put your code, and then it has a calendar. 2 years ago, Meta came up with the studio, and now if you use Hootsuite, you don't do it anymore. And you don't do it anymore not because, I love Hootsuite and they were great and all that stuff, but the thing is that Meta also tries to punish you by using an external wrapper. say. So yeah, I think that's going to be technology. There's going to be, and there's also the concept of just monopolization of this type of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
even WordPress, I would say that probably WordPress is the best example of something that I think that they were like, okay, so this is the platform, you guys do whatever, people can buy your plugins and all that stuff. This is just what we're using the platform. They never really, they do come up with some products, but it's not like, now if you buy this WordPress, you're going to have, well, if you buy this WordPress, then that's a statement that's weird. Now with WordPress, you also get this. Now you don't. They just kind of like say, hey, this is the source, you figure out how you want your stuff. But, I think with the OpenAI, just because they're with Microsoft, there's going to be the whole thing, which I highly dislike of Microsoft, where like, okay, so great that you did Microsoft Word, great that you did Excel, Word, all that. But for example, other projects that came out of it, like, Google, it's not, is the version for Microsoft for chatting online. I don't think it's not Google Meets. It's something similar. I don't remember the name of it.
Microsoft Teams?
Microsoft Teams. But then what they try to do is that they try to put you into like, okay, so in order for you to sign up for Microsoft Teams, you also have to get all these packages, but you have to force you to having these Microsoft email and blah blah blah. They made it really, really, really complicated, and at the end, when you actually use the product just doesn't hit the line. So yeah. I will say with OpenAI, I also heard of that I think the president is leaving or something like that. It's just most likely it will get into like that system that, okay, so now that we have this, Microsoft is just going to build everything we can get. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just gonna I don't know, it's hard to know how it plays out. I think these wrappers, these companies that just wrap the product and then just show the same output are probably not going to exist very long. But I think there are wrappers that are classified as wrappers that actually add more value. So they'll have other data sources coming in and mixing with what the AI is doing, or they'll have, and they'll have a different UX and UI, different experience for the user. So for example, there is a company that lets you craft the article with AI, but then in order to fix it, like you can fix it right there and then within the text, and you can prompt it right there instead of just having it be a chat, because a chat is not the best way to do that. So I think there are ways to add value, even if you're connecting to the API of one of these, Claude or GPT or one of these big ones. But I think it's going to be the combination of like using external data sources and mixing that data with the AI data, UX UI experience, and then maybe using a combination of different AIs. You can use, maybe Bard does this or Palm does this, and then ChatGPT does this, and then I use an open source one that I fine tune that does this other thing. And then that way you've got a recipe that is very hard to copy because nobody really knows inside. Only the people from the company know what's going to what AI. And then the output is totally different from just being a regular wrapper, right? So I think that's like I think we're going to see like rappers being successful with something like that, with a mix of different things like that. And then going back to like marketing per se, I think the other thing is, I think social media gets really, really difficult, like exponentially harder. There's a lot more noise.
Well, there's going to be a lot of noise. But that was my two predictions. Well, there's two predictions of mine. The first one is what's going to happen with X and Elon and all that stuff. I wouldn't say that although it could be a bad, like somebody's going to either retake it and make it a Twitter again and call it Twitter, or they try to do like something like that. Or X is sold, or it's given, or it's delegated to somebody else in order for it to maintain its presence. Yet there's nothing. I know that there are other ideas that have come out to try to replace it, but I think that it is just so ingrained in the culture that it's just going to be too hard for anyone to say, you know what, we're going to stop. Unless they do something, well, then you're just not going to stop through Next, and you say that somebody's going to be like, look, maybe this is not a toy that you should have, Elon. Let's sell it to somebody else. And I think that could probably go down next year after, numbers and all that stuff is preferable. I know that he was using it for some other stuff. So, but that's one. I do wonder what's going to happen with it. I just don't think that it's going to grow as hard as it used to, or it's going to be replaced. Yeah. The other thing too that I had is a lot more internet stores, or let's say brick and mortar stores. Like, as I made an example of CVS, if you go online to their website, you could actually advertise your product that they're selling on the shop. So I think that there's going to be more of that where companies that have brick and mortars are like your Home Depots and stuff like that, where they're going to have is an in-store, it's an in way of making profit, not just on going there and purchasing, but also on the ad portion of that. And I feel that next year that's going to be big to the point that now in 2025, we're going to be talking about, well, how I know was that? Where it's like, well, you only really wanted to find water, then you have to get 15 advertisements for different waters. I just wanted to know where the water aisle was, to make an example.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what Amazon did, right? Amazon
Yeah.
made billions of dollars from their advertising, and I think e-commerce was like, "Oh, we should be doing the same."
So you have that, and then I also feel that that's just going to be more into well, I think what is a real source of reviews and what is not a real source of reviews. Like there's always going to be this issue about like what's a real customer review and what it's just somebody that you pay for to say, like our grill is the best. And it's silly because I'm having this very, very similar conversation where I'm looking into buying a new grill and then you see some grills that are like, this is the best grill, and it kind of almost gives you the ChatGPT. Why would this grill with these specificities is great for so and so? So then you have these answers that are pretty much like, the grill stands really well and it doesn't roast. It is made with this material. You have that, but then you also have like one reviews that are like, dude, this grill will catch on fire just because the gas hose is too close to the burn kind of thing. So it's one of those things that you just don't, before you had that as a point of reference. Now it's just like, well, it's this whole noise or what. So I think there has to be something that is going to enter the market that is going to be like really more customer protection. And I think that that's going to be a good thing that's going to take people into like a better direction.
Yeah. I think that's going to be very much needed. And going back to like the other point is social media is going to get really difficult because I think it's not just the AIs and the virtual influencers coming into the game. It's the fact that more and more people are producing content. And so if you look at, for example, Instagram is very difficult to grow organically, right? It's become a really hard social media platform to be on.
And not just organically, it's like you can spend good, a grand on a good video that you did, and you'll probably get the views. And remember, this is them giving you the number. You're gonna get probably like 30,000 views, 50,000 views. You will check it, but it will increase your following by 3 people. So it's like, what? Pay $1,000 just to get 3 followers? And like, no. Well, this is a branding thing that we're doing for your brand, but this is not really like you cannot count followers as followers and guys as that, which is a conversation that a lot of agencies are having, including myself.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the answer there though is these algorithms have been changing remember we talked about like how Facebook was more about your social connections, and if I post something then you see it because we're connected. They've been moving towards more of the TikTok model where it doesn't matter if we're connected, you like surfing, I don't, you're going to see surfing videos.
Yeah, entertain me.
Yeah, it's more about like your interests. What are your real interests? Because it doesn't matter if we went to high school together. At the end of the day, you're into surfing, I'm not. We went in our different ways, kind of. And so these algorithms have been changing. Instagram, all these algorithms have been changing to show people more of what they're interested in because that increases the time you spend scrolling, and that increases the amount of advertising they can sell. And so I think the conversation is going to start having to switch from number of followers to how did the content perform, because that content is being shown to the people that are interested in that. And how does that translate to actual results, like business results, sales, leads? You know what I mean? It's not going to, I think that's, in an ideal world, that's the conversation you should be having anyway, where you're talking about your business results and not impressions or cost per click or clicks. But I think the follower count is going to lose a lot of importance because It doesn't matter if you have 1,000 followers. Like,
No,
you know,
it already it already it already has like lost some of that points. We were talking about this to give a reference to that plan. It's like the best thing that you can do is create content, and this happens. So create content that people save. So I don't say, well, you know what? In my world, like if you see my Insta is like 70% recipes. Like I just I love seeing the people cooking all the stuff, and then I'm like, okay, well, this is a good carne asada, no, and oh, this is really good. Then I save it. Now here I feel that I have a digital content that is all by me and somebody else producing all the stuff, but then that is probably the most valuable thing that you can do to an individual. As you're saying, well, if somebody saves it, before it was like, well, if you give it a like, then there's a point. If you share it, add 3 points to it. Like the best thing that you could do is share it. If you're going to comment, that's 5 points because then somebody's taking a little bit more into putting that. But now the content that you need to look for is content that people are really, saving. And
Yeah.
that would be that's probably what you can analyze. Like, okay, so I did this post, I did 10 posts on your Instagram, but look, this one was saved by 10 people. This is very valuable. And I'm targeting 10 people because I mean it means that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's something dollars.
It's just a number, yeah. But I don't know, man. I think those engagement metrics from social media, in my view, right? This is very particular, but I think they should be used to understand which pieces of content did better,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then say, okay, this one has more likes, shares, comments, shares, whatever, saves. Why don't we create an ad based off of this, or let's run this as an ad, and then extract the value from that? Versus like this is the value we're providing is look at these clicks and comments and people saving. Because I think
No, I
You know?
mean you can just use it even the basic of it, which is people really like these 10 posts, people really like these two, rather than making 10 posts again, let's focus on improving in these 2 posts that we did. You can also just take it as the basic.
Yeah, but I would say like what we really need are like business results. And so
Yeah.
I would say like, look, let's run these, organically see, and then we'll put money behind the ones that work out, and then we'll measure business results at the end of the quarter, sales, etc. And then say, okay, how do we optimize what we're doing in marketing to drive those business results? Because I do think the conversation gets sort of lost when we focus on impressions, clicks, etc., where maybe there's no brand recognition, you're not really building anything, you're just talking, or you're just producing, maybe crappy videos, but then you boost them with ad, and then it gets the views. I think it's
You have the very common one, which is like, oh, you saw what they were selling? No, but the girl was so pretty that like 10,000
Yeah.
people like.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the girl in the bikini like gets 1,000 likes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but what are you really building there, right? Like, unless you know what I mean, like there's strategies to do
Unless
that.
you sell bikinis.
Yeah. Unless you're, or maybe you're a beer company, or like there are exceptions to that. But I think it's I think back to the original point, I just think it's going to be very, very difficult to compete organically in certain social media platforms. So for Instagram, for example, I think it's exponentially harder. It's already so much harder than it was, 5 years ago, but it's going to be much, much harder. And then I think what we need to do as marketers is try to find where like the cheap real estate is. So we need to go and find like, okay, well, maybe we need to move into more of a TikTok, or TikTok is going to get more expensive as more people, flow into the platform. But then maybe where are other spaces where it's not so expensive. So maybe Twitter now is better because a bunch of people left and Disney left and all these companies, like maybe like
We mentioned in a previous episode. You mentioned in a previous episode that you had through the AI that you had somebody who was using that platform from Facebook that became a ghost town. And he's like, no, I got clients.
Oh yeah, the threads, and the Facebook launched threads, and I just think like as marketers we need to feel like, okay, well, I can buy you the super expensive real estate, and but you're gonna have to have a lot of money because it's expensive, and sure we can compete there, or I can buy you this real estate where we can still reach a bunch of people, but it's cheaper, and if we do it right, with the same budget, it's going to create a lot more awareness or a lot more sales or etc. So I think the creativity is going to go through the roof, but that makes everything a lot harder for everyone. So now it's like you want to be really good at Instagram, you have to like sort of, compete at the highest level to really be good at it. I mean, at least organically, right? Like you can always pay your way through
Yeah.
the budget.
I don't know, man. I would tell you that to grow Instagrams organically, it's definitely a whole other. It's just a whole other ballgame. It's just like, you know what?
Yeah.
Like, for the amount of work that it takes to create content without AI, let's say even with AI, because you still have to have time to pretty much do it. That same amount you can just put it again. It's just like do 10, find 2, promote those 2 as an advertiser, and then get that. Like, yes, social media is going to be a whole different, very interesting.
Yeah. And I wonder what it's going to be like. The impact AI is going to have is probably just going to be, it's going to make it even worse, to be able to punch through the noise. I actually think maybe by the end of, the last quarter of the year, a lot of brands are going to be like, let's just go back to like, I don't know, direct mail or, things that are markets where it's not that saturated. Let's go back to, you know what I mean? Like, let's go back to running events, or let's go do something else.
Well, there's always that. There's a huge still value on I don't know. One of my first jobs was pretty much guerrilla marketer. So I would drive around with Verizon when I was truck across the United States, and then I would stop by and have conversation with people about the product and all that stuff. Huge engagement, huge rate, but I think it's going to go back to some sort of world where like people are going to be very like, hey, so are you? Yeah, I'm real. I'm a human. You can touch me. You can feel it. You can ask me questions.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also going to be like, I think
experience marketing is the term.
Yeah, and then I think people are going to look for leverage. So I think they're going to be like, okay, we need to, because it's so competitive, we need to do so much more content throughout the year. We just can't do a post a day, like that won't cut it. They're going to have to look for leverage. So they're going to be like, okay, let's do that. Let's do the guerrilla marketing thing. Let's go walk on the streets and do whatever we want to do. Let's film that, and that becomes our social media for the month. And then let's run these 3 podcasts, or let's run these 3 different shows where we're doing these different things, and based off of that, we'll extract the rest of the content. So I think they're going to look for leverage in terms of content, not just leverage by using AI and doing all that. I think it's by using the piece of content and repurposing it for different scenarios. A lot of brands will probably go into something like that because they're just not going to be able to keep up with the volume that needs to get produced.
Also, the other world is before, like, hey, I heard about these sweepstakes. I want to participate in sweepstakes. Every day there's a sweepstakes. It's just losing a lot of just basic marketing concept that people really get engaged and you can get information from. Just gone.